Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a world of cracked wood, wet socks, and very, very early mornings. The air is cold, your nose itches from straw dust, and you're about to start a day that began long before you were ready. You lie on a lump of bedding stuffed with hay, wrapped in a rough wool blanket that scratches more than it warms. Your eyes creak open. No alarm clock, just the sound of a rooster with serious confidence issues crowing from somewhere way too close. A breeze sneaks through the thatch above your head. You're awake, not because you want to be, because you have to be. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it over there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly, trying not to jostle the others. There's no bedroom, just one room, one smoky, creaky, shared with 6 other people room. Your cousin is still snoring near the hearth. Your little brother mumbles in his sleep. And somewhere under the bench, there's a chicken making suspicious noises. Don't ask. Your knees crack. Your back twinges. You stand anyway. Outside, it's not really morning. It's the dark before dawn stage where everything's gray and damp and smells like yesterday. The door creaks as you push it open. It's not locked. Nothing's locked. If someone wants to steal your one wooden spoon, let them. Maybe they'll take the goat too. You step out barefoot, straight into mud. No surprise. It rained last night. Again. Your toes squish in thick earth that sucks slightly when you pull your foot up. The chickens flap around your ankles. You nod at them like old coworkers. Yep. We're all still alive. Good job, everyone. You trudge around the corner and relieve yourself behind a leaning fence that offers no privacy and zero dignity. Nature doesn't care. You're not special. Not even the flies think so. Then, water. You grab the bucket, splintered and uneven, and head to the well. It's a 5-minute walk, unless your neighbor stops you. Which she does. She squints at you. You're up late, she says, even though it's still too early for any sane activity. You grunt something polite and keep walking. Drawing water is a 2-hand job, but your arms still feel like straw themselves. The rope squeals, the pulley sticks, and the bucket comes up heavy and sloshing. You haul it home like it's treasure, because it is. Everything depends on water. Cooking, washing, soaking blisters, surviving. Back inside, your mother's already blowing on embers, coaxing the fire into something useful. She mutters a prayer between puffs. You set down the water. She nods. That's the closest to good morning you're getting. Breakfast is something. Rye bread from 3 days ago. A bit of mashed turnip. You chew slowly, thinking about nothing in particular except maybe how much you miss salt. Your little brother eyes your crust. You sigh and break it in half. Quirky fact, most peasants didn't eat much meat. It was saved for feast days or stolen and prayed about later. Bread, gruel, onions, and weak ale were your usual menu. And no, it doesn't get more exciting. You dress, layering 2 tunics that don't match, and one of them has a hole in the armpit. You don't care, no one does. The mud will handle the color coordination soon enough. Outside again, the light is shifting. Gray becomes blue. The sky yawns. The rooster crows a second time, just in case you somehow forgot he exists. You glare at him. He seems pleased. You head toward the fields. You don't own them, but you're bound to them. The Lord owns the land. You rent it with labor. The more you work, the more food you get to keep. Sort of. It's a math problem with too many variables and not enough bread. You pass the reeve. He's the one who enforces all this. He nods like he's the king of everything, and not just a man with a stick and a list. You nod back. Deep down, you dream of tripping him into a ditch. But today's not the day. Historians still argue whether peasants felt completely trapped or quietly proud. Some say serfdom was a living prison. Others point to peasant customs, festivals, and resilience as signs of deep-rooted identity. You wouldn't call it pride, but you'd call it stubborn. And that's close. You reach the fields just as the sun peers over the trees. It lights the wet grass. It glints off puddles. And for a second, just one, you feel something like beauty. Then you step in cow dung. So it begins. Your foot slides in the dung with a little squish that echoes louder in your mind than it does in the field. Great. That's going to smell amazing all day. You scrape it against a stone and mutter the medieval equivalent of course this would happen. The air is thick with morning mist. It clings to your skin, your clothes, your eyelashes. You taste it on your tongue, half dew, half soot, maybe a little sheep. You roll your shoulders, take one last breath of stillness, and then begin. You are not alone. The others arrive in a slow trickle. Neighbors, cousins, one man with 2 teeth and a scowl for everyone, and a woman who whistles off-key but with enthusiasm. There's old Marta, bent like a question mark, who insists on working because if she doesn't, I'll die sitting down. Fair. Each of you takes a section of the field. There's no ceremony. Just picking up your tool. Today it's a hoe, yesterday it was a rake, tomorrow it might be your bare hands, and digging in. You are knee-deep in it now. Not just mud, obligation, expectation, dirt under your nails, bugs in your sleeves, muscles that start sore and only get worse. There's no quick job. Everything is slow, deliberate. Every weed fights back. Every furrow collapses slightly after you cut it. The sun finally breaks free from the fog just in time to remind you it still exists and it has no chill. You sweat, not gracefully, not a single shimmering drop down your temple. Number. You sweat like a faucet. Your tunic clings. Your hair mats to your skull. Your armpits declare war on your nose. And still, you keep going. Because if you don't, there won't be food. There won't be favor. There might be a beating. At minimum, there will be a lecture. And those are worse. Quirky fact. Some medieval peasants smeared pig fat on their feet to prevent blisters. You tried it once. It worked. But you smelled like a breakfast fire for 3 days and the dog wouldn't stop licking your toes. Mid-morning brings a short pause. Not a break. Just a moment where everyone pretends to check the soil so they can lean on their tools. You share a glance with the man next to you. He raises an eyebrow. You both sigh in perfect sync. Someone's singing. Badly. The same song from yesterday and the day before. It's about a fox who steals a pie. You hate it. You hum along anyway. Then it's back to work. You tug at roots. You swat at flies. You scratch an itch that moves every time you reach it. The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows and making the sweat in your eye feel like fire. Historians still argue whether peasants had set hours. Some records suggest they worked from dawn to dusk. Others hint at seasonal rhythms and midday rests. You suspect the truth is, you worked until you couldn't, then hoped nobody noticed. Around noon, someone collapses. Not dramatically, just a quiet slump near the edge of the plot. Two others rush over. You squint. It's Thomas, the blacksmith's youngest, probably skipped breakfast. Again, someone fans his face. Someone else offers the heel of a loaf. You stand there, hoe in hand, pretending this won't be you next week. He gets up. Eventually, wobbly but walking. You don't say anything, just nod. That's enough. By afternoon, your arms feel like wet rope. You switch hands, then switch again. It doesn't help. The blisters on your palm are starting to blister. There's dirt in your teeth. You spit and it comes out gritty. Your tongue tastes like regret. Still, the work gets done. You finish your row. You move to another. You see a frog the size of a loaf and nearly trip over it. It stares at you like you're the problem. You apologize to it. There's a kind of rhythm in all this. Misery, sure, but rhythm. Hoe, breathe, wipe, hoe again. You hum the fox song again, just to make yourself hate something more than the ache in your knees. Then, finally, someone says the best two words in your language. That's enough. It's not really. There's always more. But for now, it's enough. You straighten slowly, your spine complaining with every inch. Your hands shake. You blink against the sun, now low and smug in the sky. You made it. You worked. You didn't collapse. You only swore aloud once. Success. You drag your tool behind you as you trudge back home. Every step a reminder that your legs are, in fact, attached and extremely displeased about it. The path is uneven. Your stomach growls. You step in another patch of mud and just accept it. Resistance is futile. You pass a field of geese. They glare at you. You glare back. It's a tie. Home is ahead. Not comfort, but familiarity. A bench to sit on. A crust to chew. A bit of warmth if the fire holds. You step inside, ducking the low beam, and breathe in the scent of smoke, turnips, and people. You've survived the day's labor. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. But for now, you sit, and that's enough. You wake up with a noise in your ear, a crunch. It's not ominous, just your joints. You blink slowly, roll your neck, and discover that sleep did nothing for your back. Your arms feel like sacks of lentils. Your calves have entered a rebellion, and one of your fingers is permanently curled like it's trying to hold a tool that isn't there. Another day begins. And what's waiting for you out there? Blisters, bugs, and the kind of tools that look like they were made by someone who hated hands. Today's chore, clearing stones from the upper field. It's the kind of work that seems like it should be simple. Pick up a rock, toss it, repeat. But each rock has a personality. Some are slippery, some are sharp, some are buried just enough to make you curse the entire concept of geology. You try to lift one, and it grunts at you. Or maybe that's your spine. You lean on your shovel. It's made of wood, and the blade is iron only in theory. It's bent, the handle is split, and it's held together with twine, hope, and possibly cheese. You mutter a small threat to it. It shudders in fear. Quirky fact, most peasants' tools were homemade or passed down for generations. You once used a pitchfork that had its tines replaced with carved sticks. It worked great, unless you wanted to actually lift anything. You settle into the rhythm, dig, lift, curse, repeat. A beetle scurries across your arm. You flick it off. It lands on your foot. You step sideways and twist your ankle slightly. Classic. The sun rises slowly, watching your pain like it's entertainment. You squint against the glare, wipe your forehead with a sleeve already damp from dew, and realize you haven't blinked in about 6 minutes. Your eyes feel like sandpaper wrapped in regret. Beside you, old Marta works in silence. She's tougher than leather, wears a hat that's probably older than the chapel. She once said she sharpened a scythe on her teeth. You're only half sure she was joking. Back hurts, she croaks. You nod. She chuckles. Good. Means you're still alive. Historians still argue whether peasant labor was always backbreaking or if seasonal variation gave periods of rest. The answer is both. There were easier months, but even rest meant repairing tools, mending fences, or preparing for the next disaster. The calendar doesn't stop. It just changes outfits. You pause for water. Your bucket, of course, has a leak, so you drink fast and slosh the rest on your head. It feels like heaven, briefly, until it runs into your shirt, and you spend the next hour damp and itchy. A bird lands nearby, a little black thing with beady eyes and too much confidence. It watches you dig, tilts its head. You whisper, "You try this, feather brain," and it hops once, unimpressed. By mid-morning, your hands are screaming. You peel off your gloves, glove, singular. The other vanished weeks ago, and examine the damage, blisters, new ones overlapping the old ones, a constellation of suffering. You pop one absent-mindedly and hiss like a cat. It's part of the routine now. You sit on a stump for a moment. Just a moment. The world sways slightly, not because the wind is strong, but because you forgot to eat anything substantial again. You had a piece of bread, a bite of onion, and that's all. Your stomach growls like it's offended. Someone nearby offers you a bite of cheese. You say thank you with your entire soul. You're pretty sure it's goat cheese, and the goat was angry when it gave it. Still, delicious. Then it's back to it. The rocks don't stop, the bugs don't stop, the aches don't stop, but neither do you. Because this is life. It's not about finishing, it's about continuing. Showing up with your blistered hands, your bent tools, your stubborn little heartbeat, and saying, "Fine, let's go again." Later, you help fix a cart. The wheel is cracked, the axle is sulking. You hold it steady while someone hammers a wooden peg into place using a rock and a prayer. It mostly holds. You call that a victory. You haul a sack of barley to the granary. It's heavier than expected. You nearly drop it. Your knees buckle, but you don't fall. Someone cheers. You feel weirdly proud. By sundown, your body is done, like a candle at the bottom of its wick. You're not walking home. You're swaying in that direction and hoping gravity does the rest. You pass the old chapel. The priest is muttering over something, probably another warning about sin and laziness. You wave. He doesn't wave back. You're not offended. You reach your hut, collapse onto the bench, and finally take off your boots. Steam rises. One of your toes might be haunted. Inside, someone hands you soup. Thin, but warm. You slurp it like it's the best thing you've ever tasted, which, after a day like this, it is. You lean back, eyes half closed, listening to the quiet crackle of the fire and the hum of tired conversation around you. Someone coughs. Someone snores. A mouse skitters under the wall. You're still sore, but you're still here. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. The fire is low when you rise, just a dull orange glow beneath a pile of ash and last night's dreams. You don't want to get up. Your legs agree. So do your shoulders, neck, arms, eyelids, and even your eyebrows. But your stomach disagrees, and unfortunately, it wins. Food. You shuffle to the table. Well, bored. It's a plank propped on two stumps, but it's earned the title. You reach for the cloth that keeps the rats off the bread. Underneath is, yep, the usual, 2 hunks of rye. One's hard, the other's harder. You choose the smaller one because chewing less is a kindness. You gnaw slowly. The crust fights back. Your teeth creak. You win, but barely. You've eaten things with more flavor, but not recently. You find a turnip in the corner. It has a dent, a spot, and a vague smell of despair. You slice it anyway. It's edible. Technically, you dip it in yesterday's drippings. They're congealed into a heroic little blob. You nod in approval. Breakfast is served. Quirky fact: bread was so common and important in the medieval diet that people referred to meals simply as bread. You didn't say, "I'm having lunch." You said, "I'm having bread." Accuracy counts. After eating, you stretch your arms toward the ceiling, crack something in your back. You'll pretend that was intentional, and move outside. The morning fog has lifted. The air smells like someone spilled soup on a wet goat. A neighbor waves. You wave back with your mouth full of turnip. The children are already chasing each other with sticks. You remind them not to stab each other in the eye. They nod solemnly, then immediately ignore you. Time for your second meal. Not for you, but for the pig. You feed it kitchen scraps, old greens, moldy bread, and something that used to be an apple. The pig is thrilled. It looks at you like a god. This is the only moment of pure adoration you'll receive all day. You wish you could feed yourself as well. Midday arrives. Work slows, just slightly. You lean against the fence post, sip the last of your thin ale, and stare at your meal with the intensity of a man hoping it will somehow become stew if you blink hard enough. It does not. You chew anyway. The turnip returns, this time fried in a bit of lard. It's better. Not good, but better. Someone passes by with a basket of onions. You pretend not to salivate. They pretend not to notice. You've heard of spices, exotic things like pepper and saffron, rumors mostly, fairy tales for cooks. Once a traveler claimed to have eaten honeyed meat. You suspect he dreamed it during a fever. Historians still argue how much variety existed in peasant diets. While bread, legumes, and turnips were staples, some regions had access to more herbs, dairy, or occasional meat. Still, most meals were functional, not flavorful. You eat to not die. Everything else is seasoning. You daydream about a chicken. Not to raise, to eat. Roasted, with fat dripping down your chin and a crunch that echoes through the village. Then your stomach growls again, and you accept the reality. Tonight's menu is porridge. Again. Evening falls. You return to the hearth, where the pot simmers with whatever's left. Barley, a bit of greens, water, and a lot of hope. The smell is faint. You add salt. Just kidding. There's no salt. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth. You think about how you used to complain as a child. Now, this thin porridge feels like kindness in a bowl. Your cousin slurps beside you. You trade him the bigger ladleful for a half-burnt crust, bargaining like royalty. After dinner, someone shares an old song. Off-key, naturally. You hum along. Then someone else tells a joke. It's not funny, but you laugh because the sound is better than silence. Then comes the best moment of the day, sitting still, not working, not walking, just sitting. The fire glows. The air is thick with smoke and steam and the soft murmur of a dozen tired voices. Someone passes a small jug. You sip. It's bitter, sharp, and possibly alive. You hand it back with a grateful nod. Quirky detail. Peasants brewed their own weak ale, called small beer, because the water was often unsafe. It had low alcohol, but enough bite to scare off bacteria and occasionally your taste buds. You lean back against the wall, feet stretched out, belly mostly full, head buzzing with a hint of warmth. You made it. You didn't feast, but you didn't go hungry. You didn't celebrate, but you didn't despair. You just ate. And tomorrow you'll do it again, because food is survival. Bread is a blessing, and a single good onion can feel like wealth. You stretch one last time, yawn wide enough to terrify the dog, and let your eyes fall shut. Not to dream of banquets or towers or kings, but maybe, just maybe, to dream of another turnip that's slightly less chewy Sunday morning. Or at least, you think it's Sunday. The days blur together like soup that's been reheated too many times. But there's a different energy in the air. People are sweeping a little more, muttering fewer curses, and wearing their tunics the right way out. That's the medieval version of dressing up. You're heading to church, not because you're deeply devout, although you've memorized most of the prayers just from repetition. You go because everyone goes. It's where sins are weighed, rumors are traded, and attendance is noted by both your neighbors and God. And worse, by the reeve. You splash water on your face. It's icy, and your left eye goes temporarily numb. You use a corner of your tunic to pat dry and try to make your hair look like it was brushed sometime this month. It wasn't. You give up and flatten it with your palm. The chapel sits on the edge of the village like an old man hunched against the wind. The door creaks when it opens. You step inside, and the smell hits you first. Mold, smoke, and incense doing battle in your nostrils. The air is damp and reverent. And cold. Always cold. You take your spot on the wooden bench. It's splintery and leans to one side, but it's yours. The priest enters, muttering Latin, holding a chalice like it's made of moonlight. It's not. It's brass. It's dented. You once saw a rat drink from it during cleaning. The sermon begins. You drift immediately. Something about sin, or the devil, or cabbages. Hard to say. You nod along, eyes wide, pretending you're absorbing divine wisdom, when really you're wondering if your pig escaped again. You left the fence looking suspiciously chewable. The priest thunders about humility and suffering, which feels a little ironic, considering his boots are leather and your shoes are bark. Historians still argue whether the medieval church was a source of genuine comfort or a tool of oppressive control. Some peasants found deep spiritual meaning in faith. Others, like you, attended mostly out of obligation and the fear of what happened if they didn't. You whisper the prayers, half out of routine, half out of hope. Hope that your blister heals, that your crops don't rot, that your neighbor finally stops playing that same goat song every evening. The service ends. You stumble out with numb legs and a refreshed sense of guilt. Mission accomplished. Outside, the village square hums with quiet activity. This is the one day most people aren't working the fields, which means it's the perfect time to catch up on news, argue about fences, and stare pointedly at the reeve until he looks uncomfortable. You lean against a wall near the bakehouse. Someone's arguing about sheep. Someone else is trading eggs for thread. A child runs past, barefoot and shrieking with joy. You smile. Then, an actual miracle. Someone pulls out a small wheel of cheese. Fresh. Software. Maybe even salted. You don't blink. You stare. They're saving it for a feast, they say. But they offer a sliver. You accept it like it's relic from a saint. You savor the cheese. It tastes like heaven mixed with cow. You nod solemnly. That's good cheese, you say, which in your village is equivalent to a 5-star review. Later, someone suggests music. Someone else has a battered fiddle. It's only got 3 strings and 2 notes, but you sway along anyway. A few people dance. You tap your foot. Your knees protest. You ignore them. You pass by the healer's hut, a strange-smelling place filled with bundles of herbs, bones, and jars, with mysterious things floating in them. You hesitate, then step inside. Your shoulder's been bothering you, probably from all the digging, or maybe the rock lifting, or the goat wrestling, or existence. The healer eyes you, offers a salve made from goose fat, nettles, and something she calls blessed worm root. You don't ask. You just smear it on and pretend it's helping. Quirky fact, medieval folk remedies ranged from surprisingly effective, like honey on wounds, to baffling, like powdered toad for toothaches. You once tried a cure that involved garlic and whispering to a tree. The tree still hasn't responded. By late afternoon, you return home. There's a bit of leftover stew, a crust of bread, a slice of onion. And blessedly, no work to be done. Just rest, the kind that sits deep in your bones and makes your eyelids sag. You sit by the fire. Someone hums. A child naps in the corner with straw in their hair. The dog snores like it's sawing logs. You lean your head against the wall, half listening to the crackle of flames, half lost in dreams that hover just beyond your reach. You don't know if the church absolved you. You don't know if the salve will work. You don't even know if tomorrow will bring rain or frost or rabbits in your carrot patch. But right now, the room is quiet. Your belly is warm. Your soul, though tired, is whole. And that, for a peasant, is grace enough. There's a strange sort of noise outside your door this morning. Not birdsong, not pigs, and not that one neighbor who coughs like he's been cursed. No, this is something sharper. Voices, loud ones, too many of them. You push open the door and squint into the early light. The village square is buzzing. Someone's shouting about a stolen chicken. Someone else is defending themselves with an alibi that includes sheep, a hill, and definitely not a chicken. A small group has gathered near the well. You smell conflict, but also bread. Someone's baking. Gossip, you realize, is the one luxury that's completely free and entirely abundant. You step into the crowd, arms crossed, face neutral. Best not to take sides too early. Remember the goat dispute last season? That turned into 3 broken fences and a wedding. The reeve arrives, late, as always. Stick in hand, brow furrowed like he's solving crimes instead of mostly keeping track of turnip tallies. He listens to both parties, scratches his chin theatrically, and declares that the matter will be resolved. Tomorrow. Classic. You wander off, not because you're nosy, but because that's what people do here. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows about everyone. Privacy is a concept you've only heard of in ballads, usually sung by nobles. Quirky fact, medieval villages had no real secrets. With homes packed close together, shared ovens, and one well, your business was public by default. If you sneeze, 3 people bless you. One of them also tells you to bathe. You walk past the baker's house. A warm smell wraps around your face like a blanket. You inhale like it's your first breath in days. You know it's probably just rye, but your stomach believes it might be wheat. You dream of crust, crunch, butter, the works. Then your neighbor, Agnes, calls your name. You freeze. Agnes is not a bad person, just persistent. She's been watching you all week, probably thinks you're courting her daughter. You're not. You once gave the girl an apple. That was enough. Lovely weather, Agnes says, eyes squinty. Sure is, you reply, despite the fact that it's threatening to rain sideways. You sidestep, offering a smile and a half wave. Crisis avoided. For now. Historians still argue whether tight village life fostered strong bonds or constant tension, likely both. Some called it community, others called it surveillance. You call it Tuesday. Back at home, you help your sister pound grain. It's tedious, loud, and great for venting frustration. She's singing something under her breath, probably about saints and stars and livestock behaving badly. You don't ask, you just keep rhythm. Pound, scoop, sift, repeat. While she bakes, you step outside to repair the fence. Again. Because the pig has opinions about containment, and you're tired of chasing it across muddy fields. You hammer a slat into place with a rock, then another, then realize the goat is watching, judging, planning. You stare it down. It stares back. Neither of you wins. Later, someone calls you to the green. It's pig slaughter day. You sigh. It's not that you dislike pigs. It's just, well, you do dislike pigs. Not when they're alive, when they're loud, when they escape, when they eat your shirt off the line. But you also dislike the work that follows: gutting, hanging, scraping, salting. It's a whole ordeal. Still, it's food, and food is not to be taken lightly. The village gathers. A few men handle the task. You help boil water for the scraping. The smell is something between iron and regret. A child watches, eyes wide. The reeve blesses the meat with more words than he's ever said to a living peasant. Later, there's a communal meal. Small slices for all, even the ones who didn't help. That's just how it goes. You chew slowly. You taste everything. The meat, the fat, the smoke, the unspoken joy. Someone passes you a mug of cider. It's sharp, a little sour, but welcome. Night falls, and now the square hums differently. Not with conflict, but chatter. Laughter. Children with sticky fingers. A man playing a flute that has exactly 2 notes. Everyone claps anyway. You lean against a barrel, arms crossed, eyes soft. Marta sits beside you. Remember last year? She says. When the ox cart ran over the ale barrel? You nod. We mourned for 3 days. She chuckles. And yet we survived. You smile, because she's right. The gossip, the grudges, the goat accusations, they're part of the rhythm, the messy, muddy, loud heartbeat of the village. You walk home slowly, belly full, brain tired, heart oddly light. You pass by Agnes again. She gives you a look. You tip your hat, just to be polite, just to keep her guessing. Then you step inside, shut the door, and breathe. Quiet. Until tomorrow, when the gossip resets, the chickens escape, and someone else's pig gets blamed for everything. Again. Your skin itches before your eyes even open. It's not dramatic, not a sharp pain. Just that slow, crawling sort of itch that tells you one thing. The lice are winning. You scratch your shoulder, then your scalp, then that weird spot behind your knee. Yup, definitely lice, or fleas, or some small creature nature invented to test your patience. You sit up slowly on the straw mattress. A bit of it sticks to your cheek. The blanket, more holes than fabric, slips to the floor. It doesn't matter. It was mostly symbolic anyway. Time to get dressed. You sniff yesterday's tunic. It doesn't make you flinch, so it's a keeper. You slide it on and stomp into your trousers. One leg is shorter than the other, but you pretend that's intentional. Maybe it's fashionable in somewhere that doesn't exist. You reach for your cloak. It smells faintly of smoke and cabbage. You wrap it around your shoulders like royalty and step outside. The air is cold. You inhale deeply and try to ignore the fact that you can smell yourself. Quirky fact, in medieval villages, people often wore the same clothes for weeks, sometimes months at a time. Laundry day wasn't a weekly chore. It was a rare event, usually sparked by desperation or a parade. Speaking of laundry, you trudge down to the stream. On your back, a bundle of filthy clothes. Under your arm, a stick for beating them. In your soul, a deep yearning for soap that doesn't smell like old eggs and panic. At the water's edge, a few others are already scrubbing. Women mostly. Bent over stones, sleeves rolled, faces grim. You find an empty spot, set your things down, and prepare for battle. You dunk the first tunic into the icy stream. It resists. You push harder. The water soaks your arms up to the elbows. Your fingers go numb. Perfect. You start scrubbing, then beating, then scrubbing again. Someone nearby is muttering a prayer. You join in, not for spiritual reasons, but because your shirt smells like wet dog and despair, and you need all the help you can get. After a while, you pause to wring out the cloth. It drips. A lot. You realize you've mostly moved the dirt around, not removed it. You sigh and start again. The stream bubbles cheerfully, mocking you. A girl nearby starts singing a washing song. You hate it. It's too cheerful, about butterflies and lovers and, perfume. You hum along anyway, because it's catchy. Historians still argue how often peasants bathed or laundered their clothes. Some sources suggest regular river bathing during warm months. Others insist water was feared as a vector for disease. You suspect the truth lies in between. People got clean when they had to, not when they wanted to. You finish your third tunic and stand slowly. Your back protests. Your fingers are stiff. Your nose is dripping. You've never felt more alive or more frozen. You slap the wet clothes over a branch to dry. They hang like defeated ghosts, swaying in the breeze. Someone next to you is combing their hair with a bone comb. Lice scatter like panicked troops. You reach into your pocket and pull out your own comb. It's missing a few teeth, but it's still sharp enough to make your scalp sting. You drag it through your hair slowly, grimacing. You find one. A tiny, evil little louse. You crush it between your nails with great ceremony. Victory, you mutter. Back home, you bring the wet clothes inside. They'll finish drying near the fire, if the goat doesn't eat them first. You eye him suspiciously. He stares back. It's always a contest with that one. You change into your cleanest dirty tunic and try to feel refreshed. It's not working. You smell like damp fabric and pride. Still, it's better than yesterday. You boil some herbs in a pot and add a few drops of vinegar, not for food, for bathing, kind of. You dip a rag in, scrub your neck, your arms, your armpits. The sting means it's working. Then you dust yourself with dried sage. For the scent, you smell like roasted chicken. That's fine. People will stay close out of hunger and confusion. Quirky aside, medieval peasants sometimes stuffed dried herbs into their clothes to mask body odor. Lavender, sage, mint. You once tried garlic. It worked. Nobody came near you for 3 days. Afternoon comes, and you air out your bedding. Shake the straw mattress. Beat it with a stick. You find 2 beetles and a spoon. You keep the spoon. You might need it later. Then, lice inspection. You and your cousin take turns. He checks your head. You check his. It's oddly intimate and deeply gross. He finds 3. You find 5. He wins, or loses. It's unclear. Later, you sit by the fire, your hair freshly combed, your tunic mostly dry, your blanket only slightly itchy. Someone comments that you look washed. You beam with pride. Then a child sneezes directly on your sleeve. You accept this as your fate. You pull your cloak tighter, lean back, and let the fire warm your bones. Cleanish, for now. The rooster's cry this morning sounds especially smug, like it knows what's coming. And to be fair, it does. Today is not for your own fields, not for your roof, not even for that lean-to you've been meaning to fix since spring. Today is for the Lord, manorial duty, the ultimate reminder that peasant though you may be, someone always ranks higher and expects your sweat as payment. You shove on your boots, still damp, and grab your tools. The spade, the hoe, that one bent rake that makes your wrist click every third pull. You nod goodbye to your pig and whisper, "Wish me luck." It blinks slowly, which you take as encouragement. The manor lands aren't far, just beyond the east meadow, past the sheep pen that smells like wet socks and doom. The Lord, of course, doesn't work them himself. He's somewhere deep in that stone house, probably eating goose eggs and waxing poetic about valor. You arrive at the fields with a small group, neighbors, cousins, that guy who always sings off key. You nod to each other solemnly. It's a silent pact. You suffer together. You sweat together. You don't talk about it, but you feel it. The steward greets you with the enthusiasm of a boiled turnip. He points to the tool shed. Fields need clearing. Ditches need digging. Pigs need mucking. He scratches his beard and adds, "Don't fall behind." Ah, motivation. You start with the ditch. Digging a ditch isn't noble. It's not heroic, but it is oddly personal. Like sculpting, except your medium is mud and your reward is not being yelled at. You dig, you sweat, you mutter. You take a break and stretch your spine. Something cracks. You pretend it's a good thing. Historians still argue how much labor manorial peasants actually owed. Some records suggest 2 to 3 days per week. Others imply a more flexible arrangement depending on harvests and payments. You suspect it mostly depended on how generous or grumpy the steward was feeling that week. After the ditch, you move to the stables, mucking out pigs. Glorious. You try not to gag. The pigs, of course, love you. They oink enthusiastically. One tries to nibble your boot. Another sniffs your elbow. You shovel fast, not because of the smell, though that's motivating, but because the sun is creeping higher and you want to be done before your soul leaves your body. Next, repairing a fence. The boards are warped. One is actually just a large stick. You hammer it into place using a rock and willpower. Nearby, someone is patching a hole in the barn with straw and flattened potsherds. You nod at each other. Mutual recognition of the art of barely making it work. A cart rumbles past. On it, sacks of grain from the manor fields. You eye them hungrily. You know that grain will not be returning to your side of the fence. It's bound for storage or trade, or worse, the castle kitchens. The sun hits its peak. You pause. Everyone does. Not a break exactly, just a collective slowing down that the steward pretends not to see. You eat bread. It's dry. You dip it in a bit of lard you brought wrapped in cloth. It helps. Quirky fact: peasants often packed small snacks for manorial days, hard cheese, onions, or if lucky, a boiled egg. Once you tried bringing dried apples. The pigs stole them. You've never forgiven them. Afternoon means hauling water. You take turns with the others. The buckets are wooden, leaky, and your arms feel like noodles halfway up the hill. You spill half the water on your trousers. It cools you down. Small blessings. You pass the manor house. You glance up at the windows. Are there curtains? Is that glass? You squint. You think you see movement. You imagine what it must be like. Soft pillows, warm stew, not having to know what pig filth smells like before breakfast. Then you trip on a root, spill the water, and land in the mud. Reality check. Evening finally rolls in. The steward surveys the day's work, grunts, nods, dismisses you with a wave like he's doing you the favor. You drag your tools home like fallen limbs. Your legs wobble. Your spine hums. Your hands are blistered. But you did your part. You paid your dues. Because that's the contract. You farm your land, but you never own it. You harvest your barley, but someone else takes a share. You survive, but only if the manor says you may. You arrive home. Your cousin offers you stew. You accept it like a prize. It's watery, but there's something floating in it that might be meat. You don't ask. You eat slowly. You don't speak. No one does. Just quiet chewing and crackling fire and the soft groan of tired people in patched clothing. And somewhere, beyond the hedges and the stone, your lord dines under candlelight. You finish your bowl, wipe your mouth, and sigh. Tomorrow, it's your land again. But today, it was his. You wake up nose to tail with a goat. Again, its breath is warm, its eyes are wide, and its sense of personal space is, as always, non-existent. You shove gently, and it stumbles back, offended, as if you're the one who slept too close to it. Welcome to life in a one-room cottage, where the line between family and livestock is more of a suggestion than a rule. You sit up, rub your eyes, and scan the chaos. The chicken is on the windowsill. The dog is under the bench. The piglet is chewing something it definitely shouldn't be chewing. You grab it just in time. It squeals indignantly. Everyone's awake now. You shuffle to the fire, stoke it with a half-burnt log, and put on a kettle of whatever's left. Barley water or thin ale or, on special days, actual tea. Today's not special. You sip and immediately regret it. Quirky fact: many peasants shared their living space with animals, not just for convenience, but survival. The warmth of livestock helped keep poorly insulated huts habitable in the colder months. Yes, your bed smells like goat, but you're warm. You open the door and let out the chickens. They flood into the yard like feathery chaos incarnate. You toss them some grain, then chase down the one that decided your roof beam was the ideal nesting spot. It's not. Outside, the mud is thick enough to suck off your shoes. You walk carefully to the shed, or what's left of it. The oxen are mooing mournfully. They're out of hay. Again. You grab a pitchfork and start heaving bundles. Your back already hurts, and it's only sunrise. You return inside to find your niece trying to dress the piglet in your scarf. The piglet looks alarmed. You sigh and retrieve both. No one wins. The cottage isn't dirty, it's just lived in. Intensely. Every surface is used. Every hook holds something. From the rafters hang herbs, onions, and a pair of drying socks. You're not sure whose socks. You don't ask. The hearth is the center of everything. Light, warmth, cooking, and even conversation. You stir a pot with yesterday's leftovers and add a new turnip for personality. The smell is better than it should be. A neighbor knocks and enters without waiting. He's brought milk. In exchange, he wants eggs. You nod and hand over 3. Barter is life here. Coins are for taxes and nobles. You survive on swapping, goods, favors, and the occasional piglet. Historians still debate how common coinage was among peasants. Some say most transactions were local and barter-based. Others argue that small-scale markets with currency were widespread. You know this. If you drop a penny in the mud, it's worth getting your hands dirty. Mid-morning comes, and it's time to tidy the house, which mostly means herding animals back outside. You sweep the floor. The dog sheds. The goat poops. You sweep again. It's a cycle. You tuck fresh straw into the bed corner and flip the mattress to the less pokey side. You hang your tunics by the fire and whisper a prayer that the lice took the hint and evacuated. Then, repair time. The thatch above the window leaks. Again. You climb onto a rickety stool armed with handfuls of dried rushes, mud, and wishful thinking. You stuff and patch and hope no bird is nesting in there. One was once. You still have the scar. A knock. Another visitor. This time, it's your aunt with a basket of apples. Some with worms, some just bruised. You accept them like treasure. She stays for tea. You scrape the pot and pour 2 cups. You pretend there's flavor. She tells you about the Reeves' new hat. It's too big. It's clearly stolen. She saw it first on the blacksmith's cousin. Scandal. You nod, pretend to care. Mostly, you admire the apples. Afternoon means tending the animals again. You guide the goats to pasture, keeping a close eye on the smallest. Last week it vanished for a full day. Returned smug. You suspect it found better food. Or worse, visited another peasant. The cows are more forgiving. They chew. They wander. They stare blankly at trees. You relate. You take a moment to sit in the grass. The sky is pale blue. The wind carries smells of dung, smoke, and baking bread. Not a great combo, but not terrible either. You lean back, arms behind your head, and listen. Bird song. A sheep complaining. Someone in the distance yelling about a duck. Evening sneaks in with golden light and longer shadows. You gather the animals, lead them home, one by one. The piglet goes last. It always does. Stubborn, possibly evil. Back inside, the cottage glows with firelight. You cook. Everyone eats. No one talks much. Just chewing, nodding, passing the crust. You clear the dishes, chase the chickens off the bench, and toss a few herbs into the fire for the smell. It's vaguely minty, better than pig. You lay down on the straw mattress, tuck in the blanket, and brace for impact. The dog curls at your feet. The goat finds its usual spot, your side. You groan. It bleats. Mutual respect. You stare at the thatched ceiling. A spider dangles lazily from a beam. You don't mind. This is home. Loud, cramped, smelly, and stubborn. But it's yours. There's something different in the air this morning. A hum. A hush. A heaviness. It's not market day, or church day, or even pig chasing day. No. Today is something rarer. Something that makes even your grumpiest neighbor whistle. Today is a feast day. You sit up on the straw mattress and rub your eyes. You slept longer than usual. No one came pounding on the door with chores. No one shouted about fences or ducks. Even the goat seems unusually peaceful, curled up like a loaf of judgment. You blink, stretch, and feel the delicious thrill of doing nothing, at least for now. The cottage is already bustling. Your aunt is humming. Your cousin is stuffing dried herbs into her tunic for sweetness. Your niece is braiding her hair like she's going to meet the Pope. You shrug and splash cold water on your face. That's fancy enough. Feast days mean no work on the Lord's fields, no tolls, and if the stars align, real food. Not watery stew or half-baked turnips, but bread, ale, maybe even meat. Historians say a medieval peasant had up to 80 feast days per year. Others claim it was fewer, depending on local customs, church control, and crop cycles. All you know is, today is blessed. You grab your tunic with the least amount of patches and slap on your boots. Still damp, because of course they are. Outside, the village is buzzing, not frantic like on harvest day, not tense like on tax day. It's lighter, looser. Children dart between adults. Someone's already juggling eggs. Someone else is playing a 3-string fiddle and smiling like they're royalty. The air smells of smoke and something savory. You follow your nose past the blacksmith's yard, past the chapel, and right into the center of the green, where a fire pit has been dug, and over it something sizzles. You gasp. It's pork. Real pork. Roasted. Glazed with honey and herbs. Your mouth waters. You resist the urge to hover. Barely. The stew pot beside it bubbles with vegetables and something thick and brownish. You squint. Is that barley? Or lentils? You suppress a giddy giggle. Someone hands you a slice of bread. It's soft, round, and white. You hold it like it might vanish. White flour is rare, a luxury. You chew slowly, reverently. It tastes like clouds in rebellion. Nearby, someone cracks open a cask of ale. The smell is sharp, earthy, familiar. You accept a cup, sip cautiously. It's strong, slightly sour, perfect. Quirky fact, fermentation was the peasant's best friend. Water wasn't always safe, but ale, mild or strong, was a daily drink. Even children got small ale. It was like oat milk, but yeasty and unpredictable. You sit in the grass, warm bread in hand, cup balanced on your knee, and exhale. You spot your neighbor dancing. He's offbeat, off-key, but beaming. You tap your foot in time. A juggler performs nearby, 3 apples and a potato. Impressive, until one lands in a chicken coop. The crowd howls. You laugh harder than you have in weeks. There's no sermon today. No reeve wagging a stick. Just food, firelight, and music played slightly out of tune. Later, children run races around the well. Adults cheer. Someone falls in the mud. Laughter roars. No one scolds. You nibble on cheese. Real cheese. Soft, sharp, wrapped in a leaf. You nearly cry. The sun dips lower. Shadows stretch. Someone strikes up a dance, hands clapping, feet stomping, skirts flying. You join in, not gracefully, but earnestly. Your feet remember steps from some long-forgotten wedding. You spin until the world blurs and your heart feels loose. Then the feast ends. Not dramatically, just slowly, like a candle flickering low. Plates are cleared, ashes stirred, children carried, ale cups emptied. But you stay a while longer, staring at the fire, letting the warmth soak into your skin. You feel full, not just in your belly, but your bones. This is rare. But tomorrow, fast returns. Your grain bins are low. The onions are sprouting. The piglet has been eyeing the stew pot. And everyone knows, after feast comes famine. Historians note that the rhythm of medieval life oscillated between feast and lean, celebration and suffering. It was seasonal, predictable, and harsh. But tonight, you don't think about hunger, or mud, or that suspicious mole on your arm. Tonight, you remember the crunch of white bread, the salt of pork, the warmth of ale on your tongue. And even as the fire burns low and your limbs grow heavy, you think, we made it through. Just one more day. The wind is howling when you wake, not the pleasant kind that whispers through trees and rustles wheat. No, this wind screams, slaps, shakes the thatch above your head like it's owed money. You open your eyes and immediately regret it. Smoke from the hearth lingers low and stubborn. Your mouth tastes like ash and old cabbage. You sit up, blinking at the dark, your breath visible in the freezing air. Something drips on your head. Not again. You reach up. Sure enough, the roof is leaking. You sigh, grab a rag, and wedge it into the thatch. It helps exactly not at all. A second drip strikes your shoulder. The goat stirs beside you, grunts, and rolls over. Typical. You pull on your cloak and step outside. It's worse than you thought. Rain hammers down like it's trying to wash the village away. The path outside your door is already a miniature river. Your firewood is soaked. The chicken coop is suspiciously quiet. You squint. It's not there. You stumble forward through the mud, barefoot, because your boots are drying by the hearth. Somewhere, your ancestors are laughing. The coop is indeed gone, blown clean over. Chickens flutter about like terrified spirits. You gather them one by one, cursing softly. They squawk and peck, ungrateful as ever. Quirky fact. Medieval peasants often tied or tethered their coops and pens with stones or heavy rope, especially in stormy seasons. You didn't. You meant to. But then there was the stew fire and the goat incident, and you drag the remains of the coop upright. It wobbles pitifully. You pile rocks around the base, mutter a few creative threats, and run back inside, where your sister is yelling. "Smoke!" she cries. You rush to the hearth. The chimney is clogged, again. The room is thick with gray haze. Someone opens a shutter. The wind blows in, knocks over a pot, and slams the door wide. It's chaos. You fan the smoke with a piece of your cloak. The goat bleats. The fire dies. You sink to the floor. Disaster, you realize, always shows up before breakfast. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant homes were as flammable as popular belief suggests. Some point to widespread fire laws in towns and manors. Others suggest thatched roofs, wooden beams, and indoor cooking made fire not just likely, but inevitable. You've had 3 hearth incidents in 2 seasons. One cost you a chair. One took your eyebrows. Today's off to a strong start. When the smoke finally clears, you salvage what's left of your kindling and restart the fire. The flames sputter like they're mocking you. You blow gently, beg silently. Eventually, warmth returns, but not for long. Because outside, you hear the stream. Only it doesn't sound like a stream. It sounds angry. You dash to the back window and look out. The trickle that usually meanders past your field is now a muddy beast, swollen and rushing, tearing at its banks like it's hungry. You whisper a word that isn't technically swearing. The path to the main road is already gone. Your pig pen is half submerged. You think you see your rake float past. You wave at it, helpless. Flooding, again. You knew the risk. Spring always brings thaw, rain, and chaos. But still, it stings. Your barley seed, just laid in rows, is vanishing under brown water. You grab a sack and run out into the rain, gathering what you can. Tools, scraps, straw. The mud sucks at your feet like a hungry toddler. You fall twice. Curse once. Keep moving. Your neighbor is doing the same. She waves, soaked head to toe, hair plastered to her face. You exchange a grim smile. Two soldiers in the same war. By noon, the worst has passed. The rain eases. The wind surrenders. But the damage is done. Your field is ruined. Your fence is gone. And your best wooden spoon is now someone's canoe. You eat lunch cold, a hunk of bread and half a turnip. You chew slowly like it's luxury. Because you know this. Lean days are coming. The storm was one thing. But now you'll miss planting time. The soil is too wet. The tools too few. The barley seed is ruined. And famine always walks close behind the flood. Historians remind us that natural disasters, floods, fires, frosts, weren't occasional. They were frequent, expected even. There were no insurance claims, no disaster relief wagons, just neighbors, grit, and prayer. You sit by the fire and sharpen your hoe, just in case you can plant a few patches near the tree line. Later, a neighbor brings you soup. Thin, warm, comforting. You accept it with quiet gratitude. That night, you sleep on a damp mattress under a half-patched roof. But it's still standing. You hold a mug of weak ale, watch the flames dance in the hearth, and think, you lost some grain, you lost some time. But not your home, not your people, and not your fight. There's a wedding in the village today, and you're actually invited. That's not always a given. Sometimes weddings are small affairs, a muttered promise in front of the reeve, a crust of bread exchanged between families, a gift of 3 onions and a chicken, romance, peasant style. But today, it's one of the good ones. You start the morning with something resembling excitement. You even wash your face, twice. Your niece braids your hair with a ribbon that probably once belonged to someone wealthier, but you both pretend it's new. You put on your best tunic, the one with only 3 patches. It fits weird in the shoulders, but it's cleanish and smells like dried rosemary. You consider that a win. You join the small crowd gathering outside the chapel. The bride is young, maybe 15, maybe 16. No one's sure, including her. She's smiling like someone told her she'll get 2 cabbages and half a goat, which, to be fair, she will. The groom looks older, quiet, nervous, wearing a belt that once held a scythe, now decorative. His shoes are polished. Not clean, but they shine in the light like effort itself. They stand together before the priest, who's wearing his nicer robes, the ones without mildew. He blesses them. They mumble vows. He says something in Latin that may or may not be accurate. Someone sneezes during the Amen, which adds drama. And just like that, they're married. Everyone cheers. You toss a flower petal. Just one, because that's all you had. It flutters sideways and hits a chicken. Close enough. Quirky fact: medieval peasant marriages were often more about land and survival than love. Dowries could be tiny: some vegetables, a jug, or a hen. Sometimes love bloomed anyway. Sometimes it just hovered quietly between chores. After the ceremony, the feast begins. Yes, a real feast, not grand, but joyful. You gather around long tables made from planks set on barrels. Platters of bread, stew, and dried fruit are passed. Someone roasts a rabbit. You don't ask how they got it. Ale flows. The cup is communal, and by the third round, no one minds. The dancing begins. You're pulled in by your neighbor. Her hands are calloused like yours. Her feet know the steps. You spin until your breath comes in gasps and your ribs ache from laughter. Historians still argue whether courtship rituals among peasants followed church-approved patterns. Some say betrothals required witnesses and parental consent. Others suggest informal unions, where living together and shared work mattered more than rings or rights. In this village, a shared pig counts as a lifetime commitment. You sit later beside the fire, cheeks flushed, stomach full, heart light. The newlyweds sit across from you, whispering and giggling. You hear something about that goat. You smile. You remember your own wedding, if it was a wedding, a stolen kiss, a shared field, a promise muttered between breathless work and sour ale. There was no priest, just the stars. And now, years later, you still share stew, still bicker over firewood, still steal glances when no one's looking. You suppose that's romance. Someone strikes up a tune, a flute, a drum, someone whistling off key. The music floats through the dusk like smoke. You close your eyes and sway. Later, there's storytelling, old tales, worn myths, a knight who loved a goose, a witch who turned turnips into horses. Everyone knows their nonsense. Everyone listens anyway. You lean your head on a cousin's shoulder. She rests hers on yours. The bride rises and throws dried petals into the fire. A small blessing, a tiny spark of hope. She turns, smiles, and disappears into the night with her husband. Tomorrow, she'll rise at dawn, feed chickens, sweep floors, chase pigs. But tonight she's radiant. You walk home slowly, under a sky filled with stars and smoke and promises. Your house is quiet. The goat is asleep. The piglet snuffles in a corner. You lie down, wrap yourself in your blanket, and think. Somewhere, two people are beginning something, with cabbage and hope. There's a stranger in the village. You notice him before he even speaks. His cloak isn't patched, his boots aren't muddy, and his face, clean-shaven, smooth, suspiciously free of barnyard sorrow. He's standing at the well, staring at it like it might bite. He holds a rolled scroll under one arm and smells vaguely of parchment and overconfidence. You and your cousin exchange a look. Outsider. Turns out he's a scribe. He's here for the taxes, You groan. Internally, of course. Externally, you offer a polite nod and the kind of smile that says, "Please don't count my chickens." Tax season, the most unholy time of the year. More feared than winter, more loathed than a leaking roof. The scribe sets up in the chapel, rolls out his scroll, dips a fancy quill in ink, and begins calling names like a prophet with a spreadsheet. You wait your turn. When it comes, you approach slowly. He eyes you like a man who has never dug a ditch in his life. You stand tall anyway. He asks how much grain you harvested. You tell him. He frowns. He asks how many pigs you own. You hesitate, thinking of the piglet currently hiding behind your bench. He writes something, probably damning. You sign with an X. You can't write. Neither can most of the village. But your X is strong, defiant, slanted slightly because the table's uneven. Historians still argue how harsh medieval taxation really was. Some accounts describe oppressive levies, grain, eggs, labor, even salt. Others suggest a patchwork system, loosely enforced, depending on the steward's mood and the lord's appetite. You know this, the scroll doesn't lie, but it also doesn't care. You pay your dues, part in silver, precious, part in barley, more precious, and part in promise. The promise to give more later, when the barley grows, when the chickens lay, when the moon turns friendly again. You leave the chapel feeling lighter, not emotionally, just less grain in your sack. The village buzzes with whispered complaints. I gave him 3 eggs and he still frowned. He said my goat counts as 2 animals if it's fat. He asked how many teeth I had. For the poll tax, you nod, add your own tale, and everyone agrees. Tax collectors are the worst, even worse than the reeve. And that's saying something. Quirky fact, some peasants tried to trick the tax record, swapped pigs before counting day, hid hens under skirts, claimed to be just visiting their own homes. It worked, sometimes. You think about that briefly as you pass your goat in the yard. You sigh and pat its head. Next time, wear a disguise. The goat sneezes. After tax day, the village always feels a little grayer. People speak in quieter tones. Meals are smaller. Hope folds itself up like a blanket, tucks into the corner, and waits. You repair a fence post, slowly, staring at the patch of soil where your barley should have been. You cook stew, watered down more than usual. You mend a shirt, turning one hole into 2 smaller holes and pretending that's an improvement. That night, you sit by the fire and think about money, or rather, the lack of it. A single coin sits in your box, smooth, faintly warm from the hearth. You flip it once, catch it, and tuck it away. It's for emergencies, or bribes, or maybe one of those wax candles from the peddler, the kind that don't smell like sadness. The next day, the scribe is gone, left before dawn, like a ghost in soft leather boots. No one says goodbye. The village breathes again. You check your stores, low but manageable. You count your chickens, still 4. You count your spoons, still 3. You count your blessings, still here, still standing, still managing to keep a goat out of the stew pot. For now. It's cold today, the kind of cold that seeps into your fingernails, climbs up your sleeves, and whispers that your toes might be optional. You wake buried under a pile of patchwork blankets, 2 cats, and the goat, who has decided your torso is the warmest spot in the house. You try to roll over. The goat disagrees. You negotiate. Eventually, it allows you to sit up, but only if you share your cloak. Winter in the village isn't always dramatic. No avalanches. No snow-covered castles. Just relentless chill, wet straw, and the smell of turnips in everything. You add twigs to the fire. Carefully. They're damp, but you coax the flames until they offer something like warmth. You tuck your feet under the bench and sip broth. It's mostly water and onion skin, but it's hot, and right now that counts as luxury. Outside, the world is white and quiet. A thin layer of snow. Not enough to marvel at, just enough to make walking treacherous and chores twice as long. You wrap your hands in strips of cloth, tie your hood tight, and step out. The ground crunches underfoot. Your breath rises in clouds. The chickens eye you suspiciously from their half-collapsed coop. You throw them some grain and whisper, "It's you or me, ladies." They cluck ominously. Quirky fact, some medieval peasants insulated their homes by stacking dung against the outer walls. Not romantic, but surprisingly effective. Your own cottage? Just layered thatch and stubbornness, which means it leaks heat like a sieve. You check your stores. Half a sack of barley, a few onions, one turnip with a suspicious spot, and a pot of congealed something that once resembled stew. It might again, with luck and lard. You pull your shawl tighter and head to the woods. Not for firewood, you already foraged the good stuff weeks ago, but for kindling, twigs, bark, maybe something dead and dry enough to crack. As you walk, you spot another villager, your cousin's husband's sister, or something like that. She's bent over, gathering moss. You nod in solidarity. In winter, the whole village becomes scavengers. You return with a bundle of sticks and an icicle in your hair. The fire welcomes you back like a lazy cat. You feed it twigs, stir the pot, and wait for warmth. It comes slowly, like syrup. Historians still argue how peasants truly survived winter. Some claim they stored enough food from harvests. Others suggest near starvation was routine. You know the truth lies somewhere in between. Enough food, for some. Enough fuel, for maybe. Hope, stretched thin like porridge. The days are short now. Dusk creeps in before you've even finished your chores. You light a tallow candle. It flickers, stinks faintly of sheep, but gives just enough glow to mend a tear in your tunic. You hum as you sew. A song your mother sang. Something about fields and butter and a girl who married a fish. It doesn't make sense, but it's comforting. Outside, the snow falls again. Inside, the goat has resumed its position near your knees. The cat curls beside your bowl. You let it lick the last of the broth. It pretends not to like you, but it doesn't leave either. You stare into the fire. Think of warmer months, of barefoot days and blackberries, of stew that had flavor and shirts that didn't itch. You think of midsummer dancing and ale that tasted like honey. You think of laughter echoing across the green. But mostly, you think, just make it through this bit. You tuck more twigs into the fire, more hope into your chest, and sleep under the weight of blankets and beasts and the quiet promise that winter never lasts forever. There's no feast today, no fire, no borrowed ale. Just the gentle crunch of frost beneath your feet and a sky as pale as old linen. You step outside your cottage and breathe deep. The cold pinches your lungs, but you don't mind. It's morning, and you're alive. That alone feels like a small miracle. Your joints ache, knees like rusted hinges, back like a bent wheelbarrow. But you walk anyway because you always do, because there's wood to be found, bread to be begged for, a chicken with a vendetta to outrun. The village is quiet today. Too quiet. You pass a neighbor's house and notice the door is shut tight. No smoke from the chimney. You knock. No answer. You move on, but slower. He was old, you think. Or maybe just tired. You help a girl gather snow to melt for water. You show her how to stack sticks for better burning. She thanks you with a shriveled apple. It tastes like dust and hope. You eat it anyway. Later, you mend a fence. Not because you have animals to protect, but because something about fixing things makes your heart feel less fragile. The children chase each other in the field, laughing, falling, getting up again. You watch them and remember when you ran like that, barefoot, screaming with joy or defiance or both. You remember falling. You remember getting up. You still get up. Quirky fact: some peasants lived well into their 60s, despite common myths about everyone dropping dead at 30. Sure, many did die young, accidents, disease, childbirth, but if you survived those years, your body adapted, toughened, refused to quit. Like yours. You trudge home with a bundle of sticks and a handful of wild greens. Your knee clicks with every step. You hum the tune of an old work song, half melody, half breath. Inside, the fire is low. You feed it. The light returns. You sit beside it, a mug of thin broth in your hand, your feet bare and steaming. Historians still argue what gave peasants the will to keep going. Faith, stubbornness, routine. But you know the answer isn't just one thing. It's everything. 1,000 tiny reasons stacked like firewood, warmth, bread, laughter, spite. You've survived storms, hunger, blisters, wolves, boredom, taxes, goats, heartbreak, mudslides, and bad stew. You've buried friends, birthed children, lost count of both. And still, you stir the pot. Still, you whisper prayers. Still, you live. You may never hold a title, own a banner, or leave your mark in ink. But you've left footprints, a dent in the bench, a song in someone's ear, a story that someone, somewhere, might remember. Maybe not your name, but your grit, your stubborn joy, your ability to laugh at a day that tried to break you. You climb into bed. The straw pokes your back, but it's familiar. The blanket is heavy. The goat curls at your feet. You breathe in and smile. You've made it. Not gloriously, not without scars, but completely, and that's enough. Let the fire fade a little now. Feel the softness of night wrapping around your shoulders, like wool freshly spun. The sound of the village slips away. Footsteps grow softer, doors creak shut, animals settle into sleep. You've survived more than a hard day. You've survived a hard life, one built not on gold or greatness, but quiet endurance, the kind that turns mud into bread and suffering into rhythm. The stars blink faintly above your roof. They've seen you before, dragging a plow, burying a friend, laughing with your mouth full of turnips. And they'll keep watching, long after you're gone. That's okay. You don't need them to remember your name. Just your warmth, your work, your quiet daily defiance. So exhale. Let your thoughts grow soft around the edges. Let the aches drift into nothing. Let the goat snore beside you, a gentle reminder that you are not alone in this world, not even in the smallest space. because even a peasant knows how to build a life out of little things, like you just did, and like you'll do again tomorrow. Now let the fire burn to embers, let the sounds of the world become hushed, and let sleep wrap you like a borrowed blanket from a neighbor who really does care, even if they never say it out loud. You're safe, you're full, you're home.